Welcome to the Telegram and Gazette's Facebook Live presentation. We have a special event today with us with Ed Augustus, the city manager, and Larry Lucchino, who's the chairman and co-owner of the Pawtucket Red Sox, who are moving to Worcester and as of the start of the 2021 season. So this is a great event for us today. It's part of our Remaking Worcester series. And it's not just about a stadium project, because there's a whole neighborhood being created that's going to link downtown with the Canal District. So thank you very much for joining us today. Also, Mr. Lucchino has a storied history in professional sports. He was president and CEO of the Baltimore Orioles and then the San Diego Padres. And in both instances, he pioneered the idea of bringing ballparks, baseball-specific ballparks, to urban centers, which he did in that case. And when he joined the Boston Red Sox as president and CEO in 2001, he did two things. One, he was at the helm when they won their 4 World Series championships, and also he remade Fenway Park. Now he's coming to Worcester with the same sort of expertise, and he's joining with his collaborator, Janet Marie Smith, to design Polar Park in Worcester's Canal District. So we're delighted to have him here to talk about his project.
By the way, I should say that I think it was only 3 World Series. Three, but within 10 years, so that's almost like 4.
That sure is.
I think Wikipedia was wrong. I don't know.
Unless you're referring to this year, maybe.
Yeah.
Well,
prematurely. We're delighted to have our reader panel here to ask questions of the city manager and Mr. Lucchino. I'm Tony Similardies, editor of the editorial page of the Telegram and Gazette, and with me is David Nordman, our executive editor. So we'll get right to the questions because we have a big panel and we have some great questions. Our first panelist has a question on something that we got a lot of responses from people, and a number of them asked about this, and it involves traffic and parking.
Hi, I'm Marcy Hooper, and I heard, that the infamous Kelly Square is going to be redesigned to accommodate this situation. So I'd like to know what your plans are, because it seems like that's the silver lining. And also, one of the things that I feel made Pawtucket more appealing was the free parking. I know that because of the cost of the stadium, you're going to have to cover it somehow, but will there be parking available for free for people that are handicapped and or elderly?
So a couple of things. One is Kelly Square, which locals know, and there's become some sense of nostalgia about having experienced Kelly Square and knowing how to safely navigate it. But the reality is it's the highest number of accidents, pedestrian, bicycle, and vehicles anywhere in Massachusetts. Now, granted, they're not serious accidents usually because the rate of speed is relatively slow because of the congestion, but it certainly is incumbent on us and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to figure out how to make it more safe, given the fact we're going to have thousands of people coming to the city who are not familiar with Kelly Square. We're going to try to be navigating that part of our city, as well as thousands of pedestrians trying to cross there, get from the ballpark, from the housing, from the hotels, from the new restaurants, etc. It is really important that we make that a safe experience and an experience that allows traffic to flow, but in a safe way for all those using that area. So the design has not been created yet. There's a public process that started a couple weeks ago in the Canal District at the farmers market, where they were engaging local folks in the area to get their feedback, their suggestions, and there's going to be a number of ways for the public to be engaged in that discussion, so that we can take all those ideas together and then give them to the transportation planners, and they will do different iterations and get feedback from the community as to what they think works the best to proceed forward. And the goal is to have that done at the same time the ballpark and the development is done in early 2021. As far as parking goes, one of the early conversations that Larry and I and our teams had was, is there enough parking to support this ballpark? There's about 6,000 publicly and privately available parking spaces in under a half-mile radius of the ballpark. most of the city's municipally owned garages and parking lots, whether it be the library lot, the new City Square garage, the Union Station garage, a new garage that will be constructed on the south side across the street from the ballpark will add to the parking, but we think there's sufficient parking. As far as free parking, I'm not sure about free parking because, as you say, we have to pay for not only the ballpark but the other infrastructure improvements that we're doing in the area. But I think it'll be affordable, and that was one of the big points of discussion, making sure, particularly on game days, they want this to be, and we want this to be, affordable, family-friendly entertainment, and the parking costs are part of making it affordable for folks.
Could I add one general point
Sure.
to that, Tony? And that is that one of the things that made Worcester so appealing to us, and there were a variety of things, but one was that the ballpark could and would be used by the city manager, the mayor, and the city council as an urban planning device. It would be an instrument to revitalize a part of downtown. So this would be, quote, more than a ballpark. And we recognize that we have an obligation in that regard to make sure that it is both a win for the team and for baseball, but also a win for the city and for the residents. So the fact that a lot of infrastructure planning is going to go on, a lot of revitalization and development will go on, fits perfectly into our game plan, which is to be part and parcel of a larger effort, not just a ballpark effort. This is more than a ballpark.
Mm-hmm. And the question about affordability, that came up a number of times, including specifically what can people expect on ticket prices. I think there's some concern that, is this going to be like going to Fenway Park, or do you have any ranges or anything like that you can talk about?
We don't yet, because as Ed said earlier, we haven't designed the ballpark, but minor league baseball, in our case AAA Red Sox baseball, is a different animal than Major League Baseball in terms of price. We are the affordable family entertainment alternative, and we've got to stay that way. So we've got to price tickets accordingly. One of the goals is to have a variety of ticket prices. We have not always had that in the past, so that people can pick and choose their flavor of ice cream, if you will, along the way. But we will build the rock on which the church will be built is not a church, I know it's a ballpark, but it is it's a metaphor, yeah. It is affordable family entertainment. If you walk away from this session with only 3 words in your memory, think about affordable family entertainment. That's what we will be about.
Speaking of seats, the image behind you, it looks like you're recreating Fenway Park.
We didn't have an architect at this point. We just had some concepts. One of the concepts was Fenway playing dimensions. We've got to talk to the Red Sox and see how much they like that idea. We do like the idea of a mini monster in left field, but it's not. I repeat, it's not going to be a replica of Fenway. That's a different experience. This place is going to look and taste and feel and smell like Worcester. If I've said that once, how many times? I've said it 10 times. And so that's a design issue yet to be made. But I do think there's something to be said for a monster, mini monster, if you will, in left. Maybe that's the reference to Fenway that we have. But the outside will be Worcester, will be feel and look like Worcester, and the inside will be distinctive Worcester ballpark.
That's great. Now, you're going to be in the process of getting input. This was interesting, that you're going to actually be communicating with the community to get input on design ideas, and which takes us right to our next panelist, who will has a question and an idea that he wants to discuss with you.
Thank you, Anthony. Hi, my name is Alan Gordon. I'm a lifelong Worcester resident. I'm actually an urban planner, and I'm an urban planning instructor in the Urban Studies Department at Worcester State University locally. My question was a bit foreshadowed by the city manager. I'll just go a little deeper into it. My question is, will the project include a pedestrian walkway over Madison Street to connect the stadium side with the retail side and also the parking? As an urban planner, I just feel it would be a great design asset and for the project, and it would minimize the well-known traffic congestion in the area.
We were anxious to have the city as our partner in this. We think that a great ballpark needs a vibrant, attractive people on the streets neighborhood to really be successful. Look at what Fenway has become. Look at what Wrigley Field is. We're eager to see that happen. I've been involved in building 4 ballparks before this one, and if you ask me what the secret sauce is, what the critical ingredient was, I would say it was the ability to involve people in the process, not just let the people, the architects and the contractors sort of build us something, but give them plenty of input from the public, from the team, from the city perspective, from the urban planner's perspective, and it's got to work for both parties. It's got to be a win-win proposition. I should say all 3 parties, because the state is an integral part of this as well. But it's got to be a win-win proposition, and that comes from sophisticated urban planning going around an urban ballpark.
And if I could just add one more element, one of the things that really excites me about this location, and to be very honest, when we first talked to Larry and the team, we kind of thought that the south side of Madison was where it might go. And it was Larry and Janet Marie who I think instantly gravitated to the north side, and then once we got talking about it and thinking about it, we knew they were right. And nestling in a parking lot that comes in at grade in the back, that is going to be a critical element to connecting it to the downtown area. You can walk right under the Green Street Viaduct and you'd be right there at the entrance to the ballpark. So not everybody is going to access the ballpark crossing Madison Street. Matter of fact, they're going to be coming from different directions, which is what really adds to the vitality of the entire Canal District and downtown area.
We're going to, though, have a very large development on the other side, and there's going to be some natural walkability.
Yes,
well.
absolutely.
Well, as you know, as an urban planner, people walking the streets is probably the definition of a lively, effective, solid neighborhood, and that's what we want to have in the Canal District, in and around.
Thank you. There's been some discussion about how people, Union Station, in fact, we got a question from somebody who said, those railroad tracks, will there be a stop? That they go by, just like Safeco in Seattle, but will there be a stop there, or if you're at Union Station, are you, is there going to be like a trolley that might take people from Union Station to the stadium? Or?
We haven't gotten that far yet, but it's definitely something we've talked about. You're exactly right. You could bring in a Polar Park special that would come in and bring you right to the location of the ballpark. We've talked about, is there some way pedestrian-wise to connect over from that and come down into the ballpark? So all these things need to be explored. They won't be part of this initial phase, but there's certainly things as we get more train service to Worcester to continue to explore with the MBTA and the Commonwealth, because I think it is a unique location in terms of the rail access.
And I would tell you that one of the reasons we fell in love with Worcester was the train station. When we saw the train station, I know at one point it was rundown and decrepit and all of that, but thanks to some insightful public policymakers, it is now a potential to be a real, it is a gem architecturally, but it's the potential to be a really useful and important part of our ballpark and district redevelopment down there. So, and Ed talks about the pedestrian path. We think people can be walking from the train station down as well. It's about a 10-minute walk or so. That will, urban planning and railroad planning will be critical elements, not just ballpark planning.
Yeah, the station is one of the more popular T-stops in the system. And in fact, we did get some questions from people who asked, one person asked, would there be a possibility that trains from Springfield or from Rhode Island could come up to Union Station? We already have the tracks with the P&W Railroad going down there.
There is actually a private group that's working on getting access. They've got this vision, and the city's supported as well as a number of other cities that would be impacted, to actually run on the existing tracks a private line that would go from Manchester, New Hampshire, down through Lowell, over to Air, into Worcester, and ultimately into Providence. and they feel like they're making some progress on that. So we'll have to wait and see. But the idea of being able to sync up trains from Worcester that would dovetail with the Acela schedule in Providence, so somebody could, leave Worcester or one of these other stops, get to Providence and jump on the Acela to get to Washington or to New York City. I think would be a real attractive.
It's an important issue to us, Tony. I must say, while Worcester, the city, and the county will always be kind of the heart, how appropriate given your logo for the city, but the heart of what would be this regional baseball team. We want it to be a regional baseball team. We really want the people of Worcester know how to share, and we can share this team with all of Central Mass, Western Mass, Northern Rhode Island, Northern Connecticut, and we hope Southern Vermont and Southern New Hampshire. The geographical location of Worcester and this new ballpark is another one of the reasons why we thought this was a wise selection.
I recall reading, I think, that there are 6 million people within a radius of about an hour's drive or something like that to Central Mass, to Worcester.
I think that would be about right, because we're in the middle of the state. The state's population is 6 million, so even if you cut off the Cape and the far western Mass, you get Northern Rhode Island and Connecticut.
Yeah, New Hampshire. Yeah, that's great. Our next panelist, because this idea of reach out and community connections, our next panelist has a question that goes right to that.
I'm Honey Hess. I'm actually a downtown resident, but also executive director of the Worcester Center for Craft. And right now in my volunteer life, I'm the chair of the Worcester Cultural Coalition. The city of Worcester has a very vibrant arts and culture community. How do you see your organization and the ballpark fitting in with that community and making best use of those cultural resources?
We see us marching arm in arm with the arts community, the cultural community, because this will be a forum, a venue that's available to put on display, to have meetings that will advance your causes, etc. But we happen, just by nature of our personal inclinations, to be strong supporters of the arts, strong supporters of the cultural scene, and we see that very much in process too. I mean, moving up the ladder to a bigger, more active role in this community. So it's pretty critical for us that we use this facility as a community forum. We integrate the arts. Certainly the murals that are part of this town will be part of this district as well. So I think you're going to find an eager partner in us, and I mean Janet Marie Smith in particular, the woman who's supervising our efforts, and our organization in general.
Well, one of the things that the city manager has encouraged us in the cultural community to do is that when things are being built, to always say, how could an artist help us create an atmosphere that's open and accessible to everyone?
Yeah. Well, you're going to see that there will be some serious planning with the arts community. My special assistant, Bart Harvey, is down at the end of the table, and he is someone that I'd like you to talk to right afterwards, because I think some kind of opportunity to sit and talk with you and your organization would be highly beneficial to both of us.
Yeah, I think just picking up on what Honey's mentioned, we've tried to do that with our public projects, our other public projects, whether it be the library project or what we're doing on Main Street or some of the park rehabs, is to engage local artists, to make them even more engaging, interesting, creative. And we've had a great relationship with the cultural and the arts community. We want to continue to foster that. As late as yesterday, I actually met with Erin Williams, who's the executive director of the Cultural Coalition, and asked her if she could reach out and have people start thinking about the viaducts that we're going to create lighting opportunities, Green Street, Madison Street, and behind Union Station. Those are going to be ways to connect these different neighborhoods that are dark and dank and uninviting right now, and we want them to be well lit, attractive and encouraging those connections as opposed to deterring them. And I think the arts and cultural community are the perfect folks to help us really think creatively about how to use those spaces to execute on the vision that we have.
We love those viaducts. We think there's a real opportunity to make them something special and distinctive even more than they already are.
That's great, and the idea of using lighting, sort of like the bridge over Lake Winsigamon,
Yeah.
Which has got lighting and changes. So that's a neat idea. One of the things about unintended consequences of things that happen is that we did get a question from a woman, Daisy Almadares, and I'm sorry if I didn't get it right. She couldn't make it here today, but she brought up the airport, and could there be an impact there? Now, we don't know how the teams travel. Do they travel by charter plane? Do they take regular planes, or players coming back and forth? Will this have an impact on the airport with more traffic, people coming in and out?
Yes, I think
Okay.
it will. And again, another thing that was attractive about the Worcester market is the location and the fact that there is an airport here, and the fact that that airport has room to grow, considerable room to grow. Now, at the AAA level, we have a combination of travel plans. Sometimes we just take buses, sometimes we take sleeper buses, sometimes we take commercial airplanes. For example, Toledo, there's a new route opening up, I think, in November from Toledo right into Worcester. I suspect, excuse me, I think it's going to Detroit right into Worcester. And it seems to me the Toledo team will very easily contemplate flying in here. So I think there will be examples of that where our visiting teams and our fans take advantage of the airport.
Yep. Yep. I think in partnership with Massport, there really is a commitment to continue to grow the number of carriers as well as the number of destinations, and then the connecting flights. The flight even to New York, it's early in the morning, 6 o'clock, but you're at JFK by 7 a.m. and you can literally connect anywhere in the world that you need to go to. The Philadelphia flight connects with over 100 flights on that end, and the same thing in Detroit. I think it's 115 flights that you can connect to. So even if that's not your ultimate destination, connecting to another flight that gets you there is increasingly going to be easier to do.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's great. Our next panelist has a question that was asked by a number of people who sent that in, so you're up.
Hi. My name's Ellen Ganley. I'm a local Auburn resident and also representing a local anti-poverty nonprofit agency, so welcome. My question has to do with the current baseball team that plays in town. Where do you see, if at all, the Worcester Bravehearts fitting into this new project? And piggybacking on that with what Honey was asking about the arts and cultural is connecting with the nonprofits. The Bravehearts have a wonderful reputation in the community of working with and being very supportive of nonprofits. The team certainly has a great tradition of great philanthropy. So I'm just interested in, is it possible for the two to live together in the city, and your plans for engaging nonprofit and supporting us in
Well,
that way?
the city manager's been active in bringing us together with various parts of the community, the business community, the cultural community, the labor community, but also including the Bravehearts. We have had a number of meetings with John Creedon and have talked about what the future will hold. Remember, his is a different product. His is college amateur baseball, and ours is professional baseball at the AAA level. So they are two different things. So yes, to your question about whether we can coexist, I think that remains to be seen. I think it's a possibility, but we're trying to do some collaborative cross-promotion with the Bravehearts and do some things that would enable us to help them. Remember, we're not going to be here until April of 2021, so they've got another couple of seasons when they can operate as they have in the past. And then it's a question of what the market can bear and what the Bravehearts would like to do. We'd love to work with them in some way, shape, or form.
Larry, follow up on that. 2 more years in Rhode Island. Some would call it 2 lame duck years. How do you go in and back to Rhode Island and play 2 more full seasons and it's sort of you're here, you're there.
Yeah.
Address those, what
Well,
would come.
that is an issue because our long-term lease is coming to an end, but not until 2020. So there are 2 more seasons for that. But we need a couple of seasons in order to build the right kind of ballpark the right way in a new place, so we'd be ready for 2021. So necessarily there's some kind of overlap. And we had a meeting yesterday, an all-day meeting on the ballpark. But before we started with our front office people at the in Pawtucket, and it was to symbolically start the sort of day after it was officially approved on Monday. We wanted to sit down and devote the day to ballpark planning. But before we got into that, we talked about the moral obligation that we have to the people of Rhode Island. We're not going to mail it in. We're not going to phone it in for the next 2 years. We have an obligation to finish our lease, to work in the community, to do all the things we're going to do. So I told people we need to operate in 2 years for the next 2 years. And it's not beyond our capacity to do that. We are going to do a diligent, hardworking job in our last 2 years in Rhode Island, and at the same time we want to drop our roots more deeply into Worcester. So it'll be a busy couple of years. We understand that, but one of the people in our crack marketing department said we should change our name for 19 and 20 to the Pawtucket Lame Ducks. We dismissed that idea fairly quickly because we do want. We've had 40+ good years in Rhode Island, and we want to make those people understand that we feel we still have not just a legal but a moral obligation to bring them the best efforts that we can bring to the table and to do the job. So it's going to be busy time.
Just one follow-up question on that. Fact or fiction, there's been published reports about possibly trying to find a replacement team for McCoy Stadium. The Batavia franchise in New York has been rumored. Lowell has been rumored to involved. Where does all of those rumors stand in your mind?
Well, they all have a shred of truth to them. There have been people who've talked about it, including the heroic mayor of Pawtucket, who I think is a terrific public servant, and he is exploring the possibility of new teams going down there. In his case, I think he's thinking about an independent league team, but it's very much an unsolved issue right now.
And obviously, owning the territorial rights, you would be involved in any such talk.
Unless they were an independent league team.
Exactly.
For an independent league team, they don't need the consent of the existing baseball teams in the area. But if it's an organized, affiliated baseball, which is, I think, a different model, then they would.
Our final panelist today has a question that pertains, there are baseball fans, and then there are people who may not be, pertains to the city as a whole. So, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Vincent Fricker. I've lived in Worcester for the past 56 years. And I'd just like to preface my question by saying that I've seen a lot of major businesses over 40 years move out of Worcester, such as Grant's, Kresge's, Woolworths, Lerner's, and the city basically become dead. So based on that, I'd like to know how that this new stadium and the businesses that will be attached will personally benefit me and the people that have lived in the city most of their lives.
I think there's a number of answers to that. I think one is you've got 18 acres of empty brownfields that used to be the former Wyman Gordon facility. They've been sitting there doing nothing to contribute to the vitality and paying minimal taxes. That's what we're talking about. So we're going to replace that. Thank you, Vanna. with this. That is going to draw, we estimate, 500,000 plus people to the city every year. Those folks are going to be coming in here. They're going to be experiencing the ballpark, but many of them are also going to be going to Water Street and Harding Street and Green Street and other places in and around Worcester have drinks, to have food, to enjoy other activities in the city, and that is going to support all the existing businesses and allow them to continue to thrive. Across the street, you're going to have $90 million of private investment that is going to expand the tax base of the city. That's just phase one. Phase two expects further housing development, an office building, more retail, none of which was included in the pro forma for the deal. So the deal is currently structured, phase one only. Revenue will not only pay for the cost of the ballpark, but allow us to generate $22 million of new revenue that we get to decide as a city, whether we spend it on schools or public safety or other city services. And that's no phase two. So if any phase two happens over the 30-year cost of the bonds, that $22 million turns into some higher number. And if you read the Telegram a couple Sundays ago, they talked to some of the local businesses in the Canal District, like Smokestack, that have talked about expanding their existing businesses. That's not in the ballpark footprint, and so that goes immediately to the bottom line of the city's tax base, expanding our tax base, having more people pay for the cost of the services that we provide as a city, creating more jobs. All of that benefits you as a taxpayer, you as a resident of the city of Worcester. So, and we've received a phenomenal number of inquiries from developers, hotel operators, existing businesses, and new businesses that are interested in looking at Worcester. So the marketing push that this has provided the city, getting us in the Boston, Providence, throughout New England, sports outlets all over the country, in a way that's so positive, so upbeat, I think has encouraged people to say, what's going on in Worcester? Maybe there's an opportunity there we should be exploring and looking at. And we still don't fully know what the benefits of that are over the next coming years.
For a growing community, the addition of a ballpark that is kind of a community forum, it will not only expand the tax base so that it will benefit schools and other activities the city is engaged in. I hesitate to estimate, but I'm guessing $3, $4, $5 million additional would flow into the city at the outset as the project goes forward. But there are recreational opportunities for the people who live in that area. This is not going to be a dark ballpark most of the time. It's going to be open with a lot of other things going on. It's going to be a cultural bonding experience. If you were on the Commons the other night, you saw Worcester come together, and it's with a sense of pride and spirit and activism that was really contagious. There will be the development of a brownfield section, as Ed said, but that's let me add something different. Philanthropically, you will find us to be a baseball team that is active in the community. We will be active philanthropically and charitably. That is something that we have always done. You can look at our history, our record in Baltimore and San Diego and Boston and in Rhode Island. I would say you'll see here comes a new partner in the cultural, artistic community development that goes along with the economic development. So there are a number of civic public benefits. That's why having a public-private financing approach to this thing makes sense. It's not just private benefits to the ball club. There are a lot of public benefits to the city and to the people of that city. And so let's do this together and make it work for both sides.
Just one last kind of possibility. We've talked about, as this new location comes online, things like music. We have the DCU, we have the newly renovated Palladium, you have Mechanics Hall, you have other sites. So, what is it?
The Worcester Ice Center?
The Worcester Ice Center. So the idea that a lot of cities, whether it be Newport has the Jazz Festival, or Austin has Austin City Limits, music kind of weekend experiences where you have multiple genres of music in a community that people buy a ticket to, and they come for the whole weekend, and they fill up your hotel rooms and eat out and do all of that. We want to look at how do we use this to be part of bigger strategies that sell and market the community, that draw people into the community, because now you have an outdoor venue that's a nice, different kind of part of the mix. So we've haven't even scratched the surface of the ways that we're going to try to make this thing a value added for the community, but it just gives us one more tool in the toolbox.
I don't want to contradict the city manager on tape, but I do want to say that we have scratched the surface. That's all we've done, because we've come up with a tentative name for this music festival. It would be called North by Northeast. So that's as far as we've gotten.
And also in terms of economic development, we did receive a number of questions about employment opportunities, because this will provide opportunities and in different ways. First of all, there's the construction, and then there's the operation of the ballpark. So the questions we got is, what type of jobs would be available? When would they become available? And how would the word get out that, you know, go to Polar Park and knock on the door? But so how is that whole labor thing going to pan out?
I can't give you a specific answer as to how people should make known their interest right now. As I said, we're in the top of the first, but we understand that the construction jobs are meaningful, but they go away after 2.5 years, after 30 months. Many of them do. There are jobs in the front office. There are lawyers and accountants and other marketing people, but there are also part-time jobs in the ballpark that are, many people in Rhode Island still remember their first jobs being at McCoy Stadium. There were a lot of people who did that. So I think you'll see that we will be open, and we will have to be open to the idea of local participation in job creation, because the city manager has hammered that fact into us as part of this negotiation, that it's our obligation to hire people from the area and to do things with people who live in this area, because they are the people who are our partners in this venture.
And speaking of jobs, you know, you're part one of a larger ownership group,
right?
You know, which was largely Rhode Island based, but now will eventually become Worcester based. Has there been talk about bringing new Worcester based partners into the mix?
Yes.
And if you'd like to elaborate on that.
Our existing ownership structure, I guess I would be the principal owner, having the largest share, but then we have a bunch of partners. There are about 10 of us in total, and we are divided equally between Massachusetts and Rhode Island. Now, some of the Rhode Island people may choose not to move forward, but so far they are excited about Worcester as anyone. And but we do intend to involve Worcester people in the ownership of the team, and in fact we're actively engaged in discussions with the Crowley family as one possibility.
I had one final closing question. Will security be provided for the stadium? Because there are many security companies out there that would probably like to have a contract.
Yeah, so the once we lease the ballpark to the team, they'll be figuring out all the various vendors and who they're going to be using for every aspect. So I don't think we're, as Larry says, we're at the top of the first inning. So, but you know, you've heard the commitment to make sure that, you know, this is as local in its flavor and its characteristics as possible, and its benefits. So,
Thank you very much, and we'll be here for covering the whole 9 innings or even extra innings if we need to. That's our program for today. I'd like to thank our panelists. I'd like to thank Ed and Larry for coming here today. And while the Facebook Live portion is ending, this conversation is going to continue here. So make sure to check out our coverage on telegram.com, where you'll be able to see a copy of this video, as well as in the Telegram and Gazette tomorrow. Thank you, and have a great day.